Hi everyone, my name is Juan Sebastián Sandoval and today I'm going to explain you WTO dispute between the United States and the countries of Canada and Mexico. The dispute is about a measure called the cool requirements that specifically is a certain country of origin labeling requirements. So which are the facts of the case? Well, the United States, through a rulemaking process with their Congress, introduced two main mandatory country of origin of labeling requirements. These two requirements, what establishes is that first, all the retailers have to provide the country origin information of the covered commodities by this treatment that are namely pork and beef. And second, that the only commodities that are covered by this treatment and by this measure and um, can be established as U.S. origin are the ones that have been raised, born, and slaughtered in the United States. Also, the United States Congress established that or explains that this rulemaking process is the perfect way to accomplish the pursuit of the objective that is provide to consumers the information of the origin of their products. So this measure was concluded by the 2008 Farm Bill, and finally, through the rulemaking process of the United States, they concluded this measure in the what they called the finally interim rule, that is the AMS. And in this rule, they established four categories, four labeling categories, in which these commodities have to be uh, has to follow, depending of the origin uh, from which they provide. So what the current statute established as the main obligation is that a retailer of a covered commodity shall inform consumers at the final point of sale of the covered commodity to consumers of the country of origin of the covered commodity. So, saying which is the origin from which this commodity comes from. And if well, this main obligation is its scope is for retailers. It's also broader than that because it's also say that any person engaged in the business of supplying a covered commodity to retailers shall provide information to the retailer indicating the country of origin of the covered commodity. So it's not only the retailers, the ones that have to say the origin of the commodity. As you can see here, these are the categories in which the cool statute divided the labeling requirements. The first one is the United States country of origin, and the second one, the B, is from multiple countries origin. The C and the D and the E mix some of these categories depending of if they were slaughtered in the United States of or if they were raised there. So which are the claims that Mexico and Canada are arguing? Well, what they argue or what they affirm is that if well, this measure de jure is not against the WTO law and the TBT agreement, de facto it does, because in the practice, this measure gives to the imported products a less favorable treatment compared to the domestic products. So for checking if they are right or wrong with this claim, what the panel does is first to do a test for check if this measure fulfills the scope of a technical regulation, and finally the other test under the Article 2.1 of the TBT agreement for checking if it is against if there is a protection of the domestic products compared to the imported products. So in the first point about the technical regulation, what the rule says for knowing if we are under this term is that it's a document which lays down product characteristic or the related processes and production methods, including the applicable administrative provisions with which compliance is mandatory. It may also include or deal exclusively with marking or labeling requirements as they apply to a product. Well, what is important here is the test that the appellate body has established that is divided in three criteria. First one, if this document applied to an identifiable product or group of products, and what the panel says, well, that this measure specifically says that the is applying to cattle and hogs for livestock, and also for cuts of meat of pork and beef. And if well is a there is a difficulty in the livestock, uh, when they review the definition of beef and pork, they notice that this definition is meat produced or slaughtered from cattle and hogs. So this is the same group of products, and for this reason, the first criteria is fulfilled. The second one is that the document must lay down product characteristics, and what they establish is that previously the WTO has emphasized that the labeling is one of the product characteristics um, in mainly all the cases, and as this origin labeling requirement is the essence of this measure, they can say that and all the measure is surrounding this origin labeling requirement. That also in that order of ideas, the second criteria is also fulfilled. And finally, if this compliance with the product characteristics is mandatory, they review that through the classic rulemaking process of the United States, they use terms that are mandatory as are shall for the compliance with these obligations. So once it has been confirmed that the cool statute is a technical regulation, the question that proceeds is if this cool statute is violating the TBT agreement, and specifically in respect with the Article 2.1. Well, what the panel establishes is that for check if this is happening, there is also a test that is divided into three criteria. First, what the rule says is that members shall ensure that in respect of the technical regulation, products imported from the territory of any member shall be accorded treatment no less favorable than the accorded to like products of national origin and to like products originated in other country. So, which the or what the two criteria of the test reviews is first, if that the measure is a technical regulation, as we have said that it is, and second one, if the domestic and the imported products are like products, checking into account taking into account their characteristics of physical characteristics, the the classification in the harmonized system, and the end use of the consumers. Well, what the panel has reviewed is that first, the physical characteristics of of both products, if they are from Mexico and Canada, and the cattle and hogs from the United States, are the same. There is no like possibility to establish um, difference between the cattle and hogs from Canada and the cattle and hogs from the United States. Second one, that all the consumers have the same end uses for this meat, that is the human consume. Tier one, that also all the consumers found that these products are interchangeable and they don't find any problem with specifically one or another. And found that under the harmonized system, these products are categorized in the same way. And the third point is if there is a less favorable treatment between or from the imported products compared to the domestic products. What the panel has found and what the Canada and Mexico claim is that if well this is a measure that in the jure is not making a treatment less favorable, in the practice de facto it is doing. And what the panel review for establish this is they make a very long study from cost that is producing this measure, and they found that these costs that are larger and that are bigger for the imported products is making that for the retailers and the producers of the cuts of meat is more beneficial to use only the domestic products. So in the practice, that is affecting the quality of conditions of the competition. So they found finally this measure is against and violating the Article 2.1.